The name of this story is Surviving the Horror of a Haunted Target. The group of people arrived at the target in the early hours of the morning, exhausted and anxious after a long drive. They had been on a shopping trip, and their car had broken down on the way back. The nearest target was their only hope for help. As they entered the target, they were greeted by a kind employee who assured them that everything would be okay. She led them to the customer service desk and told them to rest while she went to find a manager. The people were relieved to finally have a place to rest, but as the hours passed, they began to feel uneasy. They had not seen the employee or any other staff since they arrived. The target was eerily quiet, and the only sound they heard was the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. As the sun began to rise, the people started to panic. They had no way of contacting the outside world and no idea where they were. They searched the target for an exit, but every door was locked. Just as they were about to give up hope, they heard a faint noise coming from down the corridor. It sounded like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor. The people cautiously followed the sound, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with a terrifying sight. There, in the dimly lit hallway, was a figure covered in blood, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. The people froze in fear as the figure slowly approached them, dragging its feet across the floor. It was then that they realized that they were not alone in the target. There were others trapped there too, and they were all in grave danger. The people knew they had to find a way out before it was too late. They searched the target frantically, looking for a way to escape the horrors that lurked within its walls. As they ran, they heard the sound of the figure following behind them, its footsteps growing louder and more menacing with each passing second. Just when they thought they would never make it out alive, they finally stumbled upon a door that led to the outside. They burst through it and ran as fast as they could, not looking back until they were far from the target. As they collapsed on the ground, panting and covered in sweat, the people realized that they had survived the truest horror of all, being stranded in a haunted target. The end. The name of this story is Stranded in the Sky, a cabin crew's tale of survival. The cabin crew were flying high above the clouds, their plane sailing smoothly through the sky. It was just another routine flight, and the crew were looking forward to landing in their destination and getting some rest. But as they crossed over the ocean, things took a turn for the worse. The plane suddenly shook violently, and the lights flickered off and on. The crew tried to calm the passengers, but they were too panicked to listen. As the shaking continued, the crew realized that something was seriously wrong. They tried to contact the ground for help, but their radios were dead. They were completely cut off from the outside world. The crew knew they had to take action before it was too late. They worked quickly to secure the plane and get the passengers to safety. As they struggled to keep the plane stable, the crew noticed something strange outside the windows. There was a bright light hovering above them, and it seemed to be getting closer and closer. The crew were terrified, but they refused to give up. They drew on all their training and skills, and finally managed to land the plane safely on a deserted island. As they stepped off the plane, the crew were greeted by a group of friendly natives who welcomed them with open arms. They were grateful to be alive, and relieved to have found a safe place to rest. Over the next few days, the crew worked with the natives to repair the plane and get it back in the air. They were determined to make it home, no matter what it took. Finally, after weeks of hard work, the plane was ready to fly again. The crew said goodbye to their new friends and took off into the sky, leaving the island behind. As they flew home, the crew knew that they had survived the horrors of being stranded in the sky, and that they would never forget the amazing adventure they had had. The end. The name of this story is The Farmhouse Epidemic, a tale of survival and friendship. The animals on the farm had always lived a peaceful and contented life. They spent their days grazing in the fields and lounging in the sunshine, enjoying the simple pleasures of life on the land. But one day, disaster struck. An epidemic swept through the farm, infecting animals and humans alike. The animals were terrified, not knowing what was happening or how to protect themselves. The visitors who had come to the farm for a peaceful getaway were also in danger. They were stranded, unable to leave the farmhouse and escape the spreading illness. The animals and visitors knew they had to work together if they were going to survive. They banded together, forming a plan to fight the epidemic and find a way to escape the farm. The animals used their strength and ingenuity to help the visitors, carrying them to safety and gathering supplies. The visitors, in turn, used their knowledge and resources to help the animals, providing them with medical care and finding ways to keep them safe. Together, they battled the epidemic, fighting off the illness and working towards a happy ending. In the end, they succeeded. The epidemic was defeated, and the animals and visitors were able to leave the farm and return to their normal lives. They were grateful to have survived the horrors of the epidemic and to have found friendship and strength in each other. The end.